What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for a brand new episode here on our 1/48 scale J7W-1 Shinden. Today we're picking up right where we left off last time with paint. As you see here, we've got our correct colors for this particular model, and we're going to move on and start doing some work on the cockpit, get that together, and I'm hoping to get everything into the subframe and maybe some of the exterior cladding glued on. Let's go ahead and grab our paint here, and we're going to start off with our cockpit color. And this particular aircraft calls out for a Nakajima interior green, and I picked that up from Gunzi. I always like Gunzi paint, so this should be just fine. The only other colors in here, aside from a little bit of detail painting here and there, is basically just black. So we've got black and we've got the interior green color. That's about it. I also want to go ahead and work on the seat and the seat belts. I need to make sure I can get those glued in place. We're going to try out those new seat belts by Edward, the super fabric ones. So let's go ahead and grab our paint and let's get started. The majority of the details will be the base coat of Nakajima interior green, followed by some flat black for our different levers and switches. And I might actually use a very dark deep green and paint the radio to add a bit of contrast. So let's go ahead and grab our paint. Let's mix it up. Let's get to work and let's paint up our cockpit, see what we can do. Let's get this party started. Alright guys, so we are back and so far so good. We've gotten a lot of work done here on the cockpit. Everything is painted. We went ahead and tried those super fabric seat belts by Edward. They go on beautifully. You install them just with some PVA glue. That's pretty nice. And so far they've stuck decently to the plastic. However, they are a little bit on the wider side. They look a tad out of scale. I guess you could trim them down a little bit, but I didn't think to do that and I just kind of glued them down. So our seat posts are a little wonky looking. However, though, it does add a bit of detail and I think it's okay. It's passable. But we're going to go ahead and jump back into a time lapse and we're going to finish off the cockpit as much as we can. Get all the assembly done, get it installed into the subframe, and then start doing a little bit of extra weathering. And then I think we're going to work on that exterior cladding for the front nose. See what we can do with that. Let's keep it rolling, guys. We're getting there. So we are back, and as you can see here, we've gotten the front of the aircraft more or less dialed in. We've got the exterior cladding glued in place. We went ahead and put in the guns as well, and the cockpit is more or less done. However, I've got one little bit of a complaint. Everything going together with so much over-engineering, you get a chance to have a little bit of some misalignment, and I've run into something very similar with the front guns. Also, I don't really see there being a need to have these gun panels open or loose. I like the look and the lines of the Shinden with all the panels tucked in and glued together. I'm not really one for having a bunch of panels open, exposing detail. So we're going to do something a little bit unorthodox. And we are going to take our flesh cuts and cut off the gun barrels, remove them from the center subframe assembly. The reason I'm going to do this though is we can glue these gun barrels to the underside of the front nose that has the gun ports. That will give us a little bit more lateral movement, a little bit more adjustability without having to worry about torquing the guns or pushing them off center. So I think this is going to be a good idea to do. And of course, since this is a tricycle landing gear aircraft, I don't want to make a tail dragger out of it. So I'm not going to glue this on just yet until I figure out how much weight, if any, we're going to need in the front nose to keep this thing on all three landing gears. Now the panels, of course, we're going to glue those together. We're going to glue those down to the subframe. Luckily though, these don't fit all that horribly. You do have to do a little bit of cleanup though along the very bottom edge, just so we don't have a large step. And even with all the sanding, we do have a little bit of a fit issue, but it's not terrible. A bit of sanding, a little bit of Mr. Surfacer, we should be rocking and rolling. Once of course we glue those together, we will have to come in and glue on the front canards, and then eventually the nose will go on over that with the gun barrels attached. I think this is so far going together decently well. I was expecting this to be a really hard kit to build because of all the panels, and yeah, it is a little on the tough side, but still, I don't think it's impossible. I think it builds up into a really nice model. Now, moving right along here, guys, let's take a little bit of a moment here and talk about the engine. Now, I spent a good deal of time on the engine adding in plug wires and painting things, and I really like how it's turned out. However, when you mount it to the rear portion of the engine, when you drop it into its support frame, you actually lose the ability to see the majority of that detail. And that's a little bit upsetting to me because why would I spend so much time on a part that's going to be covered up and not seen? You will see some of it, mind you. You can look up through the landing gear bays, and you do see the bottom portion of the engine. However, when you go ahead and put on the exterior cladding, we'll just go ahead and test fit this real quick here, you only get a chance to see the rear portion of that whole entire engine assembly. So all the supercharger intakes, all the wires, all the plugs and all that stuff, that is completely hidden. So I don't like that. I want to change it up a little bit and try something, again, a bit unorthodox, but I think this is going to be a great way to go. Now, some of you might remember that years back, I built an FW-190 and I did not build up the engine to save it for later. And at the time, I had someone ask me, why would you just not build the engine and put it in anyway? And this is exactly why I didn't do that. What we're going to do is we're going to take the engine here from the Focke-Wulf 190. We're going to build it up into a very similar shape as what we have here for the Shinden, and we're going to engine swap them. And since I spent so much time building up and detailing the engine we currently have in the kit, I've decided to go ahead and keep it as a side display. If I can rig up some sort of a stand or gurney of some sort, I can go ahead and put that engine on the stand and display it next to the Shinden, and I think that'd be kind of cool. Now, the only reason I'm doing this, again, like I said, is you can see a little bit of detail when you look up through the landing gear bays, and this way would have something there. Of course, it's not going to be accurate. It's not the same engine. It's a totally different engine, but we're not going for accuracy with this particular move. We're going for artistic interpretation. You're not going to see the detail. It's going to be dark in there. You're only going to see just the vague image of that engine. We don't have to make this super detailed because when you look up through that wheel bay, you want to see something. So this way, we're going to see something. So let's go ahead and jump into our last time lapse, and we're going to build up the engine using whatever parts we have here from the Focke-Wulf, and also scratch build something for that long cylinder that hides and protects the prop shaft. And then we'll be back and I'll show you guys our finished product. So let's get in there, guys. Let's finish off the episode. Let's build us an engine. Alright guys, we are back, and as you can see, the Shinden is moving right along. So far so good. I've been having a blast with this build. Yeah, a bit overcomplicated, a bit over-engineered, but a really fun model to make anyway. We'll start off here in the front nose. We did not glue on the front nose piece. We left that off because, like I mentioned, we don't know if we're going to need some weight. So I don't want to glue this together until I am sure that we won't be a tail dragger. So those are in there. And you'll also remember I cut off the guns, placed those inside because I have no intention of opening up the ammo bays or anything like that. I'm just not into it. The nice thing is these parts do fit very, very well as long as you take some time, you clean up, you test fit, clean up some more, test fit again, until you're happy with the results. Once we have that all in place, we can sand it down, do a little bit of filling, and we will be good to go. So that I'm happy with. The front nose, of course, doesn't fit as well as I would like it to, but you know what? The cockpit dropped into place. Everything kind of fit in there very snugly, I might add. The seat did get a little bit skewed, but we might be able to straighten it out. And I added in those fabric seat belts. And yeah, those are okay. They're not the greatest, but they work just fine, especially for something like this, where we have it at 3 feet. So I'm happy with it. Moving on back to the rear portion of the aircraft, I did talk about this in length, but we have our stock engine right out of the kit, and I did a lot of work there, adding in wires and painting it, and I have even more ideas to make it look even better. So we're going to leave this engine off. I'm not going to go ahead and put it in there. You only get a tiny glimpse of the engine. And as you saw, I did scratch build an engine to look very similar to what we have here in the kit. Not exactly perfect, mind you, but you're not going to see a lot of it. So I think for this purpose, it's absolutely fine. And this way we can go ahead and when you look up through the landing gear bays, you will see some detail. Yeah, it won't be amazingly detailed like that engine, but it will be detailed enough and you will see just what you need to see. And I don't think you're really going to see much of it anyway, because it's going to be a dark area. We're going to glue on the exterior panels. We're not going to have any open panels at all. So all I need to do is maybe add in a couple of extra wires here and there towards the bottom portion, glue in the flaps, glue in the landing gears, and that engine should be a perfect stand-in for what we have here in the kit. That way we can use the really detailed engine as a separate display piece altogether. We just have to work up some sort of an engine stand or somehow to display it. Then we glue in our scratch build engine and check it out. We will have everything we need to keep it looking authentic. Now let's get you a close-up here and you can check out what I'm talking about. Just zooming in here real quick for you, and as you can see, the engine attaches onto these supports just fine. And if you look through the landing gear bays, you will see just a little bit of the engine. And yeah, this is a Focke-Wulf engine. It's not the engine for the Shinden, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to see much of it. All you want to see is something in there. We don't need it to be a perfect representation of the engine because all that detail will be lost. So yeah, with that being said, guys, we are moving right along. The Shinden is coming along. I absolutely love how this is looking. I will say that there is a little bit of some finicky fit issues with this rear portion with the exterior cladding. You have to be very careful and do quite a bit of sanding in order for this to actually fit. Otherwise, it kind of pops out and doesn't line up very nicely. But as you can see here, we've done enough sanding. We kind of know how it drops in place. And I think we're going to be in good position next episode to come back, install the makeshift engine. We're going to support it, level it, all that good stuff. Go ahead and close up all of the exterior panels and then drop in that rear plate for the propeller. And then I think we'll be good to go. So let's go ahead and pause for the rest of today. We're going to go ahead and let this sit. We're going to do a little bit of research there. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. And we'll see you back here on episode number 4 for more of our 1/48 scale J7W Shinden here on Military Mondays. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.